to share what she has to say. Thank you, and over to you, Christina.
Hello, and thank you for that, Oliver. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today from all over the world. I could see your messages. That's wonderful. Just want to share my presentation with you. So hello to, I saw some people typing in where they're calling from Greece, Romania, Bulgaria, India. Fantastic. I'm very excited to be talking to you about digital pedagogy in pre-primary and primary ELT. It's such a flaming issue right now. Mostly due to the disruption that COVID-19 has caused and so many educators wanting to approach digital tools and digital pedagogy as successfully as possible. So today we'll be looking at how to do all that and some of the research that has been conducted so far. More specifically, we'll be looking at the characteristics of digital pedagogy, the benefits of digital pedagogy in pre-primary and primary ELT, the developmental stages of the child and how digital pedagogy can benefit children in each stage. And I'll be leaving you with key recommendations for teachers, for material designers, and some final thoughts of a practical nature. But before we get into the literature and the developmental stages, I wanted to talk about what digital pedagogy is, because there has been some misconception that digital pedagogy only applies to online education. That is not the case. Digital pedagogy applies to online, hybrid, and face-to-face learning environments, and it's about approaching digital tools from a critical perspective, which means that it's about using digital tools as much as it is not using digital tools, deciding not to use them. So our attention is on the impact that our digital tools have on our teaching and on our students' learning. So think of it this way. You have certain materials in class in the learning environments that you are in. Do you always use the same materials? No, of course not. Do you always use course books, one specific course book? No, of course you don't. You decide when a course book would be useful, and you decide when it wouldn't be useful. You make this choice. So this is a sign of pedagogy. So putting those two together, digital plus pedagogy, has led us to believe that there is enormous promise. This is because digital pedagogy can prompt learning and teaching from a critical perspective, and if students are exposed to digital tools from an early start, from an early age, we see gradual pedagogical impact in every stage of the young learner. As children grow older, the benefits become more evident. We see the benefits. We see how children react and how they can use digital tools and how they learn and what they learn. And children are exposed to the pedagogical aspects of digital tools. It's not just about being passive and playing games anymore. They actually appreciate the educational aspect of digital tools. And also, digital pedagogy enhances the development of communication, collaboration, critical thinking, problem solving, and of course, digital competence. Because of the plethora of information and resources that our students are exposed to, digital pedagogy also increases and raises cultural and social awareness. And finally, and most importantly, it embraces learner-centeredness, learner-initiated learning, learner-led experience, and digital benefits for teachers. So we see that there is a great value in digital pedagogy. It prompts our students to become active learners, and it determines the reality according to their experiences, the experiences of the world around them. It establishes learning from multiple perspectives, whether we use digital tools or not use digital tools, whether our students are in front of a screen or using interactive whiteboards. Students enjoy multiple modes of representation, and they learn to reflect from a very early age, from an early stage. This is because we have now we have a lot of resources that provide immediate feedback, or they're prompted to pay attention to detail. Now, talking about digital pedagogy in every stage, and especially when we're talking about very young learners, and very young learners we consider ages 3 to 5-year-olds, there has been a bit of hesitation from teachers around the world to expose students to digital tools from this early on. And it makes perfect sense because students at this age of this age group are could be a bit vulnerable. They are very young. So we need to have the right approach and use age appropriate activities in order to accommodate their needs and benefit them. So you might ask, isn't it a bit too early? Well, according to the literature, the impact of digital pedagogy is mediated by the teacher's use of the same principles and practices that guide the use of non-digital materials and use of other tools. So is it developmentally appropriate? Yes, indeed it is. Appropriate digital tools and technology can strengthen the use of all materials, making it a part of the very young learner's daily routine. And according to the literature, creativity, play, interactive activities, these are not replaced, they are merely enhanced. Is there digital material for children this young? Yes, there is. There are asynchronous materials, digital tools, and technology that children can use from a very early age. And there are combinations of digital tools, content, materials that can be used according to the very young learner's cognitive and physical development, communication and language, and social emotional development. For example, when we're talking about cognitive and physical development, we see that in this particular age group starts to understand symbols. So tech tools that we could use in order to help our students develop this skill, enhance this skill, is to use online platforms or interactive whiteboards or other smart devices, and prompt them to use visual representations. We can have them working on interactive activities, games on touch screens, apps, simple drawing software, videos, short clips. So there's quite a variety. And characteristics of the material that we can use, we can highlight patterns, we can use highly interactive media, we can use activities where there's repetition of vocabulary to build that vocabulary from an early stage. And we can also include various themes and concepts that are age appropriate. When we're talking about communication and language, here, this age group prepares for writing. So we're working on pre-writing here. And the skill that they start to work on is that they can start tracing and copying. So tech tools that we can use for this, again, are online platforms, interactive whiteboards, smart devices, and interactive software and drawing software. And we can have our students work on interactive activities and drawings, games on touch screens. And with guided pre-write, we can introduce guided pre-writing activities, and it is important for this stage for our students to be guided by adults. They can also share their activities with their peers. They can share their activities with their teachers, again, with the help of adults, or they can also work on on-screen writing or tracing activities. Even when we're talking about social and emotional development, digital pedagogy can make a difference, and it can play an important role. At this stage, our young learners, our very young learners, are less concerned about making mistakes, which is a very positive feature in a language learner. So here we can use tech tools that include simple drawing software where the students aren't too bothered about getting it exactly right, but they can be creative and they can let this creativity explode. Content within the tool that we can use, of course, interactive activities and interactive drawing. And always guided by adults. They can work on these activities. They can work on varied themes on drawing software and material, and they can even practice movement. So in order to understand these stages of the very young learner in the digital phase, it's important to focus on the fact that very young learners can adopt a critical perspective and an evaluative perspective when they're exposed to digital pedagogy. They can participate from other dimensions, new dimensions now. There's a lot more variety. They can develop positive social interaction. They still work with others, but in a different way. They welcome collaboration, and they can make sense of images and symbols through these different activities and through these different tools that they are introduced to. They can experiment with language, and they can prepare and become successful English language users with confidence and higher order thinking, which is very important and quite an accomplishment at this stage. Now, when we're talking about key stage 1 learners, we're looking at ages from 6 to 8. Again, here we can observe many opportunities for our young learners. Our young learners start developing, and digital pedagogies can help enhance many characteristics and skills. Digital pedagogies can help develop critical thinking, the ability to use various digital tools, of course, something that they will need for the future, definitely. Digital pedagogies can also help increase students' motivation. It can help them become more engaged with their material, with the material that we're exposing them to. It can help them become active learners. They need to pay more attention. They need to be active learners when working with these digital tools. They can select and interpret information from auditory and visual clues. And this can help them connect spoken language and gestures and facial expressions because they actually see everything that's going on. They can see a conversation taking place. It's not just about listening. And last but not least, digital pedagogies can help advance comprehension. So again, when we're looking at cognitive and physical development, we see that at this stage, students start to combine and separate ideas, which is quite a milestone. So tech tools that we can use here are interactive whiteboards, smart devices, audio activities with visuals and videos. And we can use interactive materials and interactive activities, which they really appreciate, understand, and enjoy. We highlight patterns. We can use highly interactive media, develop concept repetition of vocabulary. Again, this is a very good stage for them to repeat vocabulary, and especially through these devices, it makes everything more memorable. Various themes and concepts that are age appropriate, and they can also be introduced to narratives at this stage. When we're looking at communication and language, we see that our young learners start to make word associations. Here we can use ebooks. This is exciting. It's very new and exciting for our young learners, and online platforms with visual representation. We can use interactive video communication, and our young learners can start creating their own ebooks. They can practice on-screen writing, shared activities with their peers and their teachers, and all, of course, guided by an adult. Even when we're talking about social and emotional development, we see that at this stage, our students develop empathy. Even here, digital pedagogy can play an important role. We can introduce simple drawing software and interactive online activities, interactive video communication, online spaces for collaboration, communication in online peer feedback situations. More specifically, we can use video songs, short storytelling clips, and blogs. And this is where the online peer feedback situations come in, because they can write their blog posts, their blog articles, and also interact with comments and give each other feedback. So they also learn how to go through this process. And material characteristics that we see, that we can use varied themes for awareness development at this stage and interactive writing activities. Now, with the right approaches and the right combinations of digital tools and material, we see that students in Key Stage 1 can, with the help of digital tools, they can help, our digital tools can help our students connect the dots, and students learn to embrace creativity, imagination, interaction, and entertainment. They do enjoy doing all this. They do enjoy these activities and using the digital tools. They become more comfortable and responsible with technology, which is also a very important asset, especially in this early stage. They can come across and imitate more complex language, more complex use of the foreign language. Looking at Key Stage 2 now, here children are a bit older and there are even more possibilities, and we have observed benefits making an appearance here if students start from a very early stage. So looking at students now that are aged 9 to 12, we see that digital pedagogies help enhance independence, collaboration skills, and students at this level and this age group start to appreciate clips, online stories, and online games for their educational purpose. We also see that in this age group, there is an increase in the attention span, and it's easier for students to concentrate while using these digital tools. This is a process, and when students start out at a very young age, they won't have, obviously, they won't have the same attention span as they will when they reach Key Stage 2. So the possibilities are endless here. They also learn to develop attention to detail. They develop hand-to-eye coordination, especially when they're working on touch screens. And this is what I found most fascinating. According to the research, higher media skills has led to more empathy and tolerance towards diversity, which is, again, very fascinating and something that we ought to do. We ought to introduce to our students by using digital pedagogy. So more specifically, when we're looking about cognitive and physical development, we see that at this stage, our students develop they start thinking hypothetically, abstractly, and scientifically. And tech tools that we can use are online platforms, and they can use apps, age-appropriate apps. They can work on their reading, on note taking, and they can even use virtual sticky notes for note taking. They can annotate online or on-screen text, highlight patterns in text, and develop concepts via text. So here we can focus more on their writing skills and their reading skills. Communication and language. When we're looking at communication and language, students at this stage start to take longer turns and speak more extensively with fluency. Tech tools that we can use in order to help them develop this skill is video conferencing software, blogs, and ebooks. Students can have online discussions with other classes from even from other countries. They can create their own stories, develop their own stories in ebooks, or even develop their own ideas in essays or in articles via blogs. Again, with guidance from an adult, they can share projects, they can use communication activities, discussions, and share their own thoughts and ideas. When we're talking about social and emotional development, Students, it's very important for the students of this age group to interact because it's important for socializing. So we can use smart devices, we can use discussion forums here, video chats, game-based platforms, and drawing software, and encourage our students to use interactive activities in drawing, interactive video communication, interactive online educational games, and video songs. We can use highly interactive media for this age group, shared activities. Now our students can upload material onto a platform that we are using, or LMS, and we can also use varied themes that develop awareness. So when we're looking at the benefits of Key Stage 2, the benefits of using digital pedagogies in Key Stage 2, we see that our students here are exposed to a plethora of information, which just gives so much stimulation, so much information, and so much linguistic information. Our students feel more independent and empowered because here now at this stage they learn how to use digital tools. They feel comfortable using these digital tools, and this is why they feel empowered. They appreciate the pedagogic purpose of digital tools. Now it has become an important part of their education and of the language learning process, especially if they've started early. And it gives them exciting learning opportunities, and they understand this. But this couldn't be possible without teachers. So it's important for us to understand that teachers form and shape young learners' attitudes and practices. Teachers' digital literacy also plays a very important role. The more you know your technology and the more familiar you are with your technology can help your students excel. Don't neglect online safety, of course, and digital coaching. These are very important, and students from a very early age should understand that the internet and all the online resources, they're very exciting and they could be fun, they could be entertaining, but they also need to be aware that there are dangers out there, and it's important to coach them in order for our young students to be able to protect themselves. It's important to embrace creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, and communication when we're using digital tools or when we're not using digital tools, when we've decided not to. And don't be afraid to join in actively. Your students do expect you to join in actively. Your students do expect you to be present, guide them and help them through activities if they need your help. Uh, it's important to use the learning environment to personalize your lessons, whether you're teaching online or whether you're teaching in a school. It's important to use the environment and adjust it in a way that you can also use your digital tools and make it beneficial to you for your students. Plan your interaction patterns and plan your lessons as you would do if you didn't use digital tools at all. It just makes good sense to include the process of the use of of your digital tools in your lesson plans. Um, and of course, plan the appropriate time on each tool and each online activity. So it's important for you to consider the length of time that a young child, a very young learner, for example, would be in front of a screen and how long they would be working on each activity. So let's say that you have arranged for your young learners to be in front of a screen for, let's say, 30 minutes. It's important to have a good turnover of activities so that you have their attention, and so that there's as much information as there possibly can be for very young learners. And of course, you don't want it to be excessive. You don't want to spend too much time in front of a screen when the children are very young. It's also very important, especially if you're working on digital tools and you're not quite familiar with digital pedagogy yet, you're just learning things. It's very important for you to reflect. So this is something that I encourage my trainees to do all the time. It's important to ask yourselves questions when you're using digital pedagogy, when you're not using it, when you're not applying it. Questions like, how will my students interact with the course content, and what will my students do with this course content? We're not using technology or digital tools just for the sake of using them. There needs to be a purpose. How will they use this content at home when I'm not there, when I can't help them? How will my students interact with each other, and how will I ensure that they are part of a learning community? This is again very important, especially for this age group. They need to feel that this learning community, and they need to feel a part of it. How will my students interact with me, the teacher? How might I guide my students' learning while addressing their needs as well? So these are all things that we need to consider. When we're talking about material design is very important, and it helps improve the quality of language input, makes L2 communication more authentic, and it provides our young learners with immediate feedback. There are activities that provide immediate feedback. This could be helpful. It's very important to include games and interactive digital material, because these are the kind of activities that do speak to the child, and they do learn a lot from games and interactive activities. It's important to use visuals, videos, and audio, and provide rich input for our young learners. Ebooks can also be, and as I mentioned before, it can provide a wide range of literacy skills, and it can help our students with their writing and reading skills. And it also encourages creativity throughout. So remember, it's very important that we remember to always put our students and our teachers' well-being first. So if something is not working for you, teacher, and if something is not working for your students, it's best not to use it. It's best not to use that specific tool that you find a bit frustrating, and change it with something else. There's so much out there. There's so much software out there. There's so many platforms, and there's so many tools that you can use. So if something doesn't really feel right and is not working for the unit, then just use something else. It's important to continue managing your classes, whether you're teaching online or you're teaching on site, doesn't matter. It's important to focus on classroom management, and this uh, can be done by providing your students with clear guidelines from the very start, and rules of how they are expected to work in the environment that you're teaching in. It's important to encourage balanced and productive parental involvement. And I understand that this can be a bit of a challenge at times, uh, and especially now with everything that is happening. Everyone is so frustrated. There are people still in lockdown for God knows how long. So it can't be easy, but focus on the word balanced here. So we do need to team up with the parents in order to provide a safe and beneficial learning environment for our students, especially if our students are working online. We do need their help. So parental involvement is important. It's also important to keep our daily routines. It's important for our students to feel that there is some kind of normality, even if we're not in the classroom right now, or even if we are in the classroom and we're separated and so far apart and keeping our distances. We do need to have some daily routines. And if these include digital tools, great. If not, again, great. Vary your activities. If you are using digital tools, if you are exposing your students to digital pedagogy, try to vary your activities, because dwelling on the same activity for a very long time can be quite um, frustrating for a young learner. And we do need to keep them focused as much as possible, and we do want to intrigue them, and we do want to motivate them. So having a good turnover between activities is always wise. And I'm going to leave you with this last slide, and just want to say, make the most of the situation, make the most of using digital pedagogy, make the most of using the technology that you have. Um, it's important to know your technology. It's important to be familiar with the tools that you're going to be using. It's important to not sweat the small stuff, because I love technology and I use it every day and I use it in my teaching and I use it all the time. But I know very well that sometimes it won't work. So if it doesn't work, don't sweat it. Go to plan B or C or D, or how many plans you have. It's important to feel that you have some backup. um, Expect the unexpected and remain flexible. And you want to make notes of what it is that you're learning in the process. If you're using some kind of new tool or new software, if it worked well, make notes about it. Make notes of what worked and why you liked it. Share with others. If it didn't work well for you, again, make notes. If you want to try it again or experiment with it, that's fine. But do keep some kind of a journal, let's say, so that you can keep a record of what you're doing and what kind of tools that you're using. Create and maintain a strong presence. Your students want to see a strong presence because this makes them feel safe. So create and maintain a strong presence. Even if something isn't working, forget it, it's fine. Move on to something else. Set clear expectations for your students. Make them understand that you're using these digital tools because they're going to get something out of it, and explain to them that they're going to be getting something out of it, and explain to them what you feel that they'll be getting out of it. Be an active leader and an active observer. You are going to be your students' safety net. Okay, they expect to see you together with this. They expect to see you rule this. So this will make them feel better. This will make them feel more confident, and this will make them feel more motivated and willing to use these tools and all this great material that you're introducing them to. And at the end of the day, just enjoy yourselves, have fun, use your digital tools, use the materials you have. There's so many resources out there. There's so much that you can do. The world is your oyster. So have fun with it and enjoy teaching through digital by using digital pedagogy with your young learners. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining me once again, and I would be happy to answer your questions.
Well, thank you so much, Christina, for that talk. I mean, wonderful to hear kind of such a positive attitude to something that we often, we often hear is something negative or something difficult. Anyone who is a parent will have lived those kind of nightmares. So it's really nice to hear such a positive approach to it. We don't have, I'm just checking the clock. We don't have a huge amount of time for questions, but there are some questions coming in. One here is from Kim Silver, which is, what are current screen time limits recommendations for very young learners, if we can be that specific?
That's a good question, and it's a question that I hear a lot. Well, there has been research, obviously, about the time that children should be spending in front of a screen. Obviously, nothing excessive. There have been studies, and you can also read about this in the paper that Oliver mentioned earlier, that Cambridge University Press published. There have been studies that say that very young learners should suggest that very young learners should not be working on screens in front of a screen for more than 30 minutes. But again, it's more about the quality of the activities that you're introducing your young learners to, your very young learners to, than the quantity. Even if it goes 35 or 40 minutes, it's not harmful per se, but there needs to be, if the quality of the activity that you're using is good and exciting and your students are having fun, why stop them on the 30-minute mark? And again, this applies for older learners as well. Obviously, researchers and other teacher trainers suggest that key stage 1 students can be exposed to the screen a bit longer, and then key stage 2 students again a little bit more. But again, it's about the quality of the activity, and you kind of get a feeling for it as well. Nothing excessive, nothing that would be harmful, but don't feel that you have a strict limit of how long your students should be in front of a screen.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. Also, another question we have coming in, which is how do we kind of involve shy students? How do we involve students who might struggle in the real life classroom, let alone the digital classroom?
Well, I find that with the shy students, it's kind of easier for them to get out of their shell when they're working on digital tools. So I would say that the more interactive the activity, the better. It helps them take their mind off the fact that, I'm shy. I don't want people to pay too much attention to me, or they get so involved in the material, and it's easy for them to just let go of that for a little bit, and work on what is the activity that they have been given. So I would say just try to include interactive activities, vivid colors, things that will catch their attention, and help them relax a little bit, and then work on the task at hand.
Excellent, thank you. And one further one. I mean, you obviously have touched on this in the talk in general, but Mariela Marquez, or if I remember rightly from what I saw earlier, is calling in from Panama. Can you please share your view on digital pedagogies in nursery, reception, and foundation? So again, kind of focusing on those very small kids.
Mhm. I think that even though they're very young, they can be exposed to digital pedagogy, and they can work on different kinds of technology. They always have to be age appropriate, and the activities that they're exposed to have to be age appropriate. But there is a lot of material now for very young learners, for very young students, and this in the specific age group, for this specific age group. So I would say one thing that we need to do is to make sure that we have the right combination of tools and materials that we can apply to this specific age group, and we. Slowly but surely we will see the benefits, and we can also see our students becoming more engaged in this material. And I'm sure that you've all seen or heard stories of a 3-year-old who took a cell phone one day, their parents' cell phone one day, and deleted all the pictures, or just took a bunch of selfies. So they can amaze you on the ability that they have to use digital tools. So I would say just focus on the right combinations, like what we talked about during the presentation, and things that you can also read about in the paper, in the white paper, and just let your students experiment with the material and the digital tools, and you'll be amazed of what they can do.
It's good to hear. I mean, there's a similar question, I suppose, in a way you have just answered it. It comes in from Stella Senetaki. How can I prompt my
That's a Greek
student?
name.
It is a brilliant name, isn't it? Hello, Stella. How can I prompt my students to participate when online? The very young learner ones. I suppose again, it's what you've said. It's about engaging content, isn't it?
It's about engaging content, and I'm glad Stella brought that up, because it's again going back to the presentation. It's very important for us to make use of the learning environment that the students are in. For example, if they're home, they can use objects that they find at home. Let's say they're working on colors, so the teacher can send them off and say, "Okay, now go bring me something yellow," for example, and they go off, bring something yellow, come back. So it's important to keep them active, not in front of the screen for the entire lesson. I mean, you can obviously share material, and they can sing and everything that we do, but they can also use the learning environment, the environment to their advantage. And I think that would work very well with any very young learner. And they do appreciate, and they like this. It's exciting. So that's what I would suggest for Stella.
Excellent. Well, I think we are kind of reaching the end of the time we have allocated for this. I think it's been absolutely fascinating as a professional and as a parent for me, and I'm quite sure for the many people who've called in from around the world to listen. So I'd just like to say thank you so much, Christina, for the talk.
Thank you, Oliver.
Thank you, everyone, for calling in. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for the great feedback I can see scrolling through the chat as I speak. It's been great.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Oliver. I had so much fun. And thank you for sticking around for the last session of the day. Fantastic.
Or the first for some, I'm sure, but there we go.
Yes, I did see some comments that it was 3 a.m. somewhere in the world where they were joining us.
That's the wonderful thing about our new global interaction, isn't it? You never know.
Indeed, yeah.
Not how it used to be. But thank you so much. That was
thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye now. Bye.